First of all, let's give a big hand of applause for Charles Rangel, who has been delighting us with his music. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Nely Galán. I'm Latina in the #1 state and city for Latinas in America. Just want to say. And I'm the founder of the Adelante movement, and I called it Adelante because Adelante means move it, Adelante, move your butt. And we're getting multicultural women to focus on entrepreneurship, wealth building, and financial literacy. I am thrilled to be here with all of you. Did you guys have a great lunch? So we're gonna have fun. You see that the configuration of the room is a little different. We're gonna have a great afternoon. We have a lot of surprises. And we're gonna talk about communities and building communities. And my community, I'll start with my story. My community is the community of immigrants. I'm a political refugee, that's my community. My women and my multicultural women who I love madly and want the best for you. And so I want to tell you, what is the story of these women? For me, I am self-made. I'm talking about entrepreneurship. I focused on entrepreneurship. And like so many immigrants, that journey starts from a place of pain. For me, it started when my parents, as political refugees, came to this country, lost everything in one day. We don't speak enough about political refugees. And we think it's easier because you're allowed in the country, but you come here and it's a shock and you come from trauma. My parents put me in an all-girl Catholic school from the time I was little. We got a scholarship for part of it, and then at a certain point, they had to pay. And when I was 12 years old in the 7th grade, I would overhear my parents at night, and they would say, ¿Qué vamos a hacer? No podemos pagar la escuela. We can't pay for the school. And my mother would say, ¿Qué vamos a hacer? To my dad. And he goes, don't worry. Jesus will help us. And I go, Jesus doesn't know the head nun. She's going to kick me out of the school. And a lady down the street from me, an older Jewish lady, was selling Avon. And I thought to myself, I got to go help my parents because immigrants and people of color, our #1 thing is to help our parents and to help our families. We're in a team together. And I went to the lady and I said, listen, I'll sell Avon. She's like, honey, I'll give you some free lipstick. I go, oh, no, 50-50. And that was my first entrepreneurial deal. And the first month that I sold Avon out of my locker, I made $200 because immigrants are great salespeople, right? And after a couple of months, I was like paying off my tuition, but I was worried because my dad is a Latino macho guy. And I knew that if he found out that I was paying for it, he'd freak out. So I went to the nuns and I said, listen, you got to send a letter home, say that I got a grant, a scholarship, something, because my dad's going to not like this. And I took the letter home to my parents. And my mother says to my dad, ¿Qué dice la carta? What does it say? And my father goes, oh my God, your daughter is a genius and Jesus helped us after all. So I just want to say that because that is the journey of so many of us. We are natural-born entrepreneurs by necessity. Later on, I became the #1 employee of what is now Telemundo, the TV network. I was an intern, then an assistant. I worked my way up and became the first Latina president of a TV network, which I'm very proud of. And at that point in my life, I did not finish school because like so many of us, we don't have linear lives. We have obstacles that derail us. Once I ran Telemundo, we sold it a number of years later to NBC, and I became Latina Tyler Perry. And in the process of all that, and you know what it's like, when you're doing all that, you're focused on that. And out of nowhere, I get a call from one day the Coca-Cola company, and they say, can you come and join one of our marketing initiatives, marketing board, diversity board? And you know, those of us that are people of color and we're women, we get asked to do everything because we're like the only one people know. So I get to Coca-Cola and I go, what am I doing on this board? And what am I learning? And what I realized, and this is good for all of us to hear, because not only can companies learn from us, but we can learn from them. I realized that as someone running a network, I didn't have really good information. I didn't realize that what I learned on the board is that Latina, African American women, Asian women, South Asian women were the #1 emerging market in the world. which means that we are the #1 purchasers, which means that no company can make it without us. And I realized, oh my God, we have all this power and we don't know it? And then they said, oh, multicultural women are about to have a revolution economically. They are running to entrepreneurship because corporations are not doing a good job keeping them. So in the bad economy after 2008, they are becoming heads of households. And Nely, if you wanted to do something about that, and if you wanted to bring information, there's an information gap with these women. They don't know where the money is. They don't deal well with financial services. They have issues with financial literacy. If you could bring them that information in one generation, you could change the entire multicultural population, because women lead, they bring the money home, they tell their kids to do this too, and you're creating self-made families. And I thought, do I need another job? I mean, people don't realize that all of us, our philanthropy is helping our families. And everybody asks us to do everything. But I kept thinking about it, and as someone who had not finished school, I went back to school to get a graduate degree, and I wrote my dissertation on multicultural women as the sleeping giant in America. And when I finished that dissertation and I brought it back to Coke, and I went in and got all my research from Coke, Walmart, all these Fortune 500s, and I had to get the research from them. And when I went back to Coke, the president of Coke North America, Sandy Douglas, said to me, Nely, you just wrote the business plan for what you need to do. So the last 5 years, I took a page out of Coke's playbook and I grassrooted it. Because they said, Nely, as a media person, you have not met your customer. I went city by city. I've hit 250 cities in America where there are small groups of Latinos, where there are small groups of immigrants and political refugees, and taught 350,000 women entrepreneurship, where the money is, skills, deep skills, which is what we need to raise our communities. Because there is no true empowerment for women until we have our own money. And until we bring that money back into our communities. We can't just wait for other billionaires to do it. We have to wealth build. So in 5 years on the road, I've collected a lot of data. I've met a lot of women. So I will tell you what I've learned, because I think it helps all of us. Number one, I think the most important thing is that there is an information gap. I have grassrooted it. Anyone here that has ideas of how we've done a lot of content, we've done a lot of self-made stories, how we can scale this so we can reach more women quicker, I'm happy to hear. But there is an information gap in wealth building. There is no reason that the #1 emerging market in the world, the #1 consumers in America, should not be wealthy. So let's think about that. Number two, we have a gap in financial services. Because everyone in financial services talks about low touch. We forget that all of these immigrants, all of these multicultural people that have come to this country come from countries where the banking systems have collapsed. And so we need high touch. We don't trust anybody. We put the money in the mattress. So we need the financial services world to embrace us, to teach us, and to know that we are the growing market for them, and to treat us fairly. And number three, I think the big thing that I learned is that there's an elephant in the room. I think when you talk about multicultural people, and I feel so bad, and I feel so in love with African Americans, because I feel like you have all been holding the voice for all of us. When all of you say to me, Nely, why are Latinos so quiet? Why are other cultures so quiet? And I feel for you. Because I want you to know, A, thank you for holding the space for all of us. But I want everyone to know that the reason we're quiet, the Latino story, the Asian story, the South Asian story is not part of the narrative of this country. It's not taught in school. We don't know that when we come to this country, and if we were to speak up in our countries of origin, we would disappear. We don't know that when we cross the border here, whether we cross the border for economic reasons or as political refugees, even if we're treated terribly, even if people speak horribly of us, we feel grateful because we chose to come. And so in a way, that lack of communication between our communities has divided us. And it is the key to the story of entrepreneurship. If we all bought from each other, If we all sold and bought from each other, we'd all be rich. So we've been divided and conquered by not having this conversation. So I want you to know, I want to leave you with this thought in speaking about communities. Together, ladies, and I say this, I'm not leaving out the guys, but we're the leaders in our families. Ladies, together, we are everything. We have all the power. And apart, we are nothing. So I want us to think about that going forward, and I want to leave you with my favorite word in Spanish. Adelante! Thank you.